I've seen a lot in my years working in corporate offices. The stress, the meetings that could have been emails, the people who climb ladders by stepping on others. But nothing stuck with me quite like what happened on a rainy Tuesday morning a few years ago. It started like any other day. The sky was gray, and the city was soaked from an overnight storm. I got to work a bit early, hoping to enjoy a quiet moment before the usual chaos began. The building I work in is one of those tall, glass-covered skyscrapers in the heart of downtown. 11 floors of suits, stress, and status games, but there's one person in that building who always made it feel a little more human. His name is Thomas. Thomas Green. He's the janitor. Or at least, that's what we all thought. He's been working in the building longer than I've been there, probably over 20 years. He always wore the same blue uniform, carried a quiet strength, and moved, with a limp that hinted at an old injury, though he never talked about it. Most mornings, you'd see him with a mop in one hand and a gentle smile on his face. He'd greet everyone the same, no matter your title or how important you thought. "You were, morning, sir," he'd say to me. Always polite, always kind. Some folks barely noticed him. Others just nodded or walked right past. But I always liked Thomas. Something about him felt steady, like he'd seen it all and had nothing left to prove. That morning, the atmosphere in the building was a bit different. Word had spread that Mr. Langford, the CEO of our company, was visiting. He was flying in from New York to meet the regional teams and tour the building. Langford was known for being sharp, rich, and, to put it kindly, confident. He wore $5,000 suits, drove a black Bentley, and made interns cry just by asking questions. People buzzed with nervous energy, hoping to impress him, or at the very least, not get noticed. At exactly 8:45 a.m., the front doors swung open, and in walked Mr. Langford. He didn't smile. He didn't look around. He walked with purpose, straight-backed, briefcase in hand, like he owned the place. And that's when it happened. Thomas was mopping near the lobby entrance, his cart just to the side as usual. He didn't see Langford coming so quickly, and as he turned, the mop bucket slightly rolled forward and brushed against Mr. Langford's polished leather shoes. A small splash of water landed on them, just a few drops, but enough to make a scene. Langford stopped cold. He looked down at his shoes, then up at Thomas. His face twisted, like he'd just smelled something awful. "Are you kidding me?" he barked, loud enough that everyone in the lobby turned. "Do you even know what these shoes cost?" Thomas looked up, startled. He immediately pulled a cloth from his cart. "I'm sorry, sir," he said gently. "It was an accident. Let me clean that for you." But Langford wasn't done. He took a step back and said with a sneer, "No, just don't. Just stay in your lane, okay? Your job is to clean floors, not ruin people's mornings." You could hear a pin drop. No one moved. No one breathed. Thomas stood still for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded, wiped his hands on his cloth, and quietly wheeled his cart away, his limp a little more noticeable than usual. The rest of us? We were stunned. Some looked down, pretending not to hear. A few exchanged uncomfortable glances. I felt a heat rise in my chest, anger, embarrassment, sadness. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. None of us did. But the day wasn't done with surprises. Around lunchtime, the building manager, a woman named Sarah, came downstairs looking uneasy. She asked to speak with Mr. Langford in private. They walked into one of the glass-walled conference rooms near the lobby. Now I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but well, the walls don't block sound very well. And what I heard? It floored me. Sarah said, "Sir, I think it's important you know, the man you yelled at this morning, Thomas Green, is the building owner." There was a long silence. I peeked over and saw Langford's face go white. She continued, "He inherited the building years ago. He never made a big deal out of it. He chooses to work as the janitor because he says it keeps him grounded. He doesn't ask for special treatment, just wants to do honest work. Langford didn't say much. He just sat there stunned. A little later, I saw him again, this time walking slowly toward Thomas, who was wiping down windows near the elevator. "Mr. Green," he said, voice quiet. Thomas turned. "Yes? I want to apologize. I had no idea who you were." There was a pause. And then Thomas said something I'll never forget. "And if I were just a janitor, would I still deserve your respect?" That moment, it hit hard. Not just for Langford, but for all of us who witnessed it. The truth was, most of us were guilty, in some way, of looking past Thomas, of judging people by their job title, their clothes, or their place in the office hierarchy. Langford didn't have an answer. He just nodded, awkwardly, and walked away. As for Thomas, he went back to work, like nothing had happened. He didn't strut around or act differently. No prideful smirk. No, "I told you so." He just kept doing what he always did, cleaning the windows, checking the trash bins, mopping the floors. Same old, slow, steady walk. Same gentle nods to everyone he passed. But something in the air had shifted. People started noticing him more. Not out of fear or guilt, but out of genuine respect. The kind of respect that should have been there all along. Executives who once walked past him without a glance now greeted him with a smile or a kind word. The front desk receptionist started keeping an extra cup of coffee for him in the mornings. Even the young interns, the ones who used to bury their faces in their phones when he was nearby, began saying, "Good morning, Mr. Green." But here's the beautiful thing. It wasn't because he owned the building. It was because we finally saw him. We saw the man who showed up every single day, rain or shine. The man who never raised his voice, even when he was disrespected. The man who cleaned up after us without complaint, who asked how our day was going when no one bothered to ask about his. The man who could have retired and lived in comfort, but chose instead to keep working, not for money, not for recognition, but because he believed in the value of honest work. We started to understand that Thomas didn't need a title to command respect. He didn't need a corner office or an expensive suit. His strength wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet, steady, and deeply human. And that kind of strength? It leaves a mark on you. As for me, I never looked at anyone in the building the same way again. I started noticing the security guards who held the doors open with a smile, the cafeteria workers who remembered our names, the mailroom guys who made sure packages landed on our desks on time, all the people who make the place run, but rarely get thanked. Thomas changed the way I see the world. He reminded me that you never really know someone's story just by looking at them. That titles and money don't make a person valuable. Character does. And now, every time I see him, pushing that cart, humming quietly to himself, I feel a kind of gratitude that's hard to explain. Because sometimes, the richest man in the room isn't the one with the shiny watch or the loud voice. It's the one with the mop in his hand, a heart full of humility, and a quiet kind of wisdom that can't be bought. It's the one like Thomas,